Refrigerant Solutions can help you save money, keep you abreast of what's going on in the industry, and give you some options that you didn't know were out there available to you. Because there are, and a lot of times, the easiest way to sell somebody something sometimes is to just keep them as ignorant as possible about it. I'm not going to do that. I want us to be an open door to you, that nothing surprises you, that you kind of got an idea all the time going on, what's going on with the refrigerant and why it's doing what it's doing. So for the first hour this morning, roughly 45 minutes, I want to take you from 1987 to today. And you may say, I can't find talk about alternative refrigerants. We're going to. But what's going to happen is if I don't give you the background for this, you're going to think that some of the stuff you've probably been told for the last 4 or 5 years was the gospel truth. And I'm not going to tell you that in all of it, some of it might have been the truth, but I'm going to tell you some of it does not reflect what's actually caused what you've seen going on with R22. And then to let you know where we are today from this point forward going with it. And then we're going to look at alternative refrigerants as one of the options, one of the 2 options that the EPA has actually given you, us as an industry, of how we keep R22 in the marketplace. Now, that's like the preface to a book, okay? You just got the intro. Guys, have y'all thought about how lucky you are? How lucky we all are? We got up this morning, rolled out of bed, looked out the window, and we saw green grass below us.
Amen.
Amen. I was telling, I did this in Mobile, when, Tim? Tuesday of this week. Mm-hmm. I do this a lot, so when I say, really? Roll around. I got a phone call that morning on the way to the meeting that a guy that I play golf with, his son-in-law, his wife found him dead in the bed with her Tuesday morning. He was 39 years old. 3 little girls. No history of anything wrong, nothing. He just wouldn't get up Tuesday morning. Guys, we never know what the good Lord's got planned for us. We never do. But we kind of know what we think is going to happen, but ultimately we're not in charge. Every day that we get up, it's a blessing from the good Lord that He's allowed us to be here. We've got jobs. We may not ever be a millionaire. We may not ever be even considered terribly wealthy until you compare yourself to the rest of the world. The person making the least in here, whatever that is, there are literally billions of people who would like to be where you are. So when you get up in the morning, thank the good Lord that He gave you another day and that He's allowed you to make choices. And I would encourage you to try to make those choices that make yourself pleasing to Him, to do things. We're really blessed, guys. We really, truly are. The good Lord's given us lots of emotions. I just told you about one that made a lot of people sad when someone dies. He also gave us the ability to laugh and to enjoy life and to realize that everything's not serious. I'm going to tell one on Tim this morning. Tim is with Sealy Properties, lots of multifamily properties across the southeast. Tim taped this presentation Tuesday in Mobile. He and I tried to figure out how to make that thing right there work. We thought we had it. We just figured out to turn the volume on. He's got a great video with no noise on it at all. That may be good. You never know. It may be good. You never know. So he's here for round 2, and I told him, I said, that was my Oscar-winning performance, buddy. I don't know if I can recreate that one again, but we'll see. But what I really want to do, I want to make you laugh this morning, and I want to show you can do it, and you don't have to be dirty about it. That you can go tell your preacher this, you can tell your mama this, and everyone will get it. How many of you got kids? Okay, how many of you got grandkids? All right. This guy picks up the phone one morning, he calls his friend. Phone rings, on the other side of the phone he hears this child's voice go, hello. And he goes, hello? Can I speak to your daddy? No. He says, why not? He's busy. He said, well, okay. Is your mom there? can I speak to your mom? No. Why not? She's busy. He said, well, is there anybody else there? She said, yes. He said, who? He said, the police. He says, the police? Yes. He said, well, can I speak to the policeman? No. He said, why not? He's busy. So by now he goes, what are they busy doing? They're looking for me. So if you got kids, you get it. I tell everybody when I tell that story, I can just see this little person lying under the bed. And they've got the phone there, portable phone, and all they can see are feet walking back and forth. And people calling a name probably and all that. That's a child. And children make you laugh. They make you laugh. So, see, we've experienced two major emotions. A third there, we've talked about something sad, we've talked about something to be thankful for, and we've laughed a little bit. Those are gifts the good Lord gave us. He also gives us the gift to learn something. And this morning, I want to try to help you learn something for a few minutes. So, if you will, let me take you all the way back, as I told you, to 1987, to something called the Montreal Protocol. And in 1987, the decision by all the countries that came together at that meeting was that they were going to do away with HCFC refrigerants, hydrochlorofluorocarbon refrigerants, of which R22 was one of them. 1987, that decision was made. We still have R22 today, don't we? Not much, but it's still out there. It took them from 1987 until 2011 to finally pull the trigger and actually start the decrease in production every year to where between 2011 and December 31st of 2019, that's the last day someone can manufacture what we've always called virgin R22 refrigerant. December 31st, it's gone. So everybody in 2010 that manufactured R22 at that point knew from 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, knew how much R22 they were going to be allowed to build each of the following 10 years. The total production in 2011 of R22 in the U.S. was 155 million pounds. The total demand for R22 that year was about 137 million. So here you're going to get an exercise in capitalism here too. Your supply exceeds your demand. So generally what happens with price when that happens? Price tends to go down because there's more of it out there than there's more of it than there is demand for it. So if you want to sell it, you got to have a decent price point. That's 2011. 2012, that 155 million went to 122 million. Demand stayed pretty constant. Now we flip them. Demand exceeded supply. How many of you were in this industry in 2012? Y'all remember what happened to R22 in 2012? All of a sudden it went almost as high as it was a month ago. I just told you a mouthful when I said almost as high as it was a month ago, because it never got as high as it is this month. Okay? But it went all the way up in 2012 due to some panic buying when people began to see, hey, there's not enough, the demand is going to be more than what's being built this year, and people start trying to hoard it and buy lots of it. The price went up to almost $500 a jug. Take that story, put it right here for just a second. Just leave that, what I just told you about right there. The EPA in 1987 knew when all this happened that eventually what happened in 2012 was going to happen. Supply would not meet demand. Yet that meant if the demand was greater than the supply, there was still enough equipment out there in the world, in the marketplace using R22 that, hey, we got to find it from somewhere because it's going to need it because the stuff leaks out, doesn't it? Okay? So they they've basically put together two options for how that demand would be met. One was, all of you know you're supposed to recover refrigerant. Not selectively recover what you want to when somebody's watching, but you're supposed to recover it all. And the reasoning for that, one, is, and look, some of this stuff I'm just the messenger, okay? I'm not going to tell you whether I necessarily agree with it or not, but it is the law, so therefore we got to do it. But one main reason they told you they want you to recover refrigerant was because the C in HCFC, the chlorine, is harmful to the atmosphere. So they want that refrigerant not being vented into the atmosphere because of the damage it purportedly does to it. The other reason was, hey, we got a lot of R22 out here equipment with not enough refrigerant to get to it, so we need some. So we want you to recover it and let it be reclaimed. And the history of reclaimed refrigerant is not too good in some cases, because prior to all this, there were people who reclaimed refrigerant, but sometimes you could, if you got a little whiff of it, you could tell it was burned sometimes. You could tell that and it just didn't always work just right because you didn't know what all was in it, because there was no standard it had to meet. In 1993, ARI, that's the American Refrigeration Institute, issued ARI Standard 700-93, which addressed the idea of reclaimed refrigerant coming back into the marketplace, but it equated it with virgin refrigerant still being manufactured. And by that, I mean it set the minimum purity standards for all of R22, which is 99.5%. So if DuPont today, they're still building what little R22 is being built, their share of it. When they get through building a new batch of R22, or y'all, any of you, recover R22 and give it to someone like me to reclaim it, once I get through reclaiming it, and once DuPont gets through manufacturing it, both of us have to take a sample of that refrigerant, send it to an EPA lab, let them test it to make sure it meets ARI 793 standard of 99.5 purity, and if it does, we both get a license to put that refrigerant in that green canister marked R22 and sell it in the marketplace. You got that option. The other option were alternatives. And over time, since 1987, and primarily since 2011, and specifically in the last 6 months to a year, you start hearing a lot about alternative refrigerants because there just isn't enough R22 going around. So I told y'all that. Now let me go back over here and pick up the story. I told you to leave that a minute. Remember when the demand wasn't enough? I mean, demand exceeded supply? Well, this standard for reclaimed refrigerant was done in 1993. When it went short on supply, a refrigerant company went to China and bought just a bazillion pounds of R22 from China. Problem was, it did not meet the 99.5 number. They brought it all the way back to the U.S., reclaimed every bit of it, brought it back in, and got it back up to 99.5, got it licensed, and all that refrigerant was dumped in the marketplace in mid-2012. You remember what happened at the end of 2012? We went from $500 a canister that by sometime in 2013 it bottomed out at about 185 bucks. And everybody wondered, what on earth happened? Because nobody much knew what was going on. Here's what happened. When that company brought all that refrigerant in from China and got it reclaimed and put it in the marketplace, there was more reclaimed Chinese refrigerant in the marketplace than there was allowable production of new refrigerant being built. And the one who got the most excited about it was DuPont. DuPont and Honeywell primarily. They said, this isn't fair. We can't build as much as what has just been dumped in the marketplace and reclaimed, and we're losing money and we're losing our market share. And they went to the EPA, complained, issued a formal complaint. DuPont going to Washington's a pretty big player going to Washington. and the EPA relented. And what happened in 2013 was the EPA did away with every production limit on R-22 that year. You could build as much of it as you wanted to. And the market, sure enough, got flooded with it. Do you understand now why you went from $500 down to $185? Because I was at M&A Supply at that time. Our price for a jug of 22, my cost topped out at about $385. You put about 12–14% on that, you're going to get something in the mid-4s. That's what you sell it for. Okay? When all that got dumped in the market place, my price went from $385 all the way down to $150 for a jug of 22. Put 12–14% on that, you get about $185–190. And all this inventory that I had bought at $385 is useless. Because you can cost average your inventory all you want to, but if it's $385, I can't cost average it to get it down to where I can sell it at $185 and make any money on it. So this is sunk cost that I can do nothing with other than sell it at a loss right then. So what do? You go buy the 150 stuff. And if you're smart, and most of the industry was, you bought as much of it as your checkbook will allow you to buy. Because what's going to happen? In 2014, the production limits went back in. And it's way below the demand. But you've had all that built up inventory since 2013 sitting in distribution warehousing. And nobody's unhappy that it's been there because it was bought at 150, and what's the price of 22 been doing? Slowly inching back up, inching back up. When we opened last June, Refrigerant Solutions, you could still buy a jug of refrigerant for somewhere around $250, $270 a jug. Today, y'all bought any of it this week? Okay. Guys, it's on the top. It's really close to $500 right now. Really close. And I ain't giving you the bad news yet. Okay. All this isn't bad news yet. This is just facts of what's happened where we are with it. But all that inventory that's been sitting there funding everything for the supply for the last 3 years, guys, that's gone. It's gone, over with. So let me tell you where we are. When the production limits were put back in place in 2014, that was the biggest single production cut in the entire 10-year plan of production. 55 million pounds was the total allowed production in 2014. Demand was still close to 100 million. So you want to know how much of it was sitting in inventory? You got 100 million demand, 55 million being built. Nobody, you could go in anytime you want to, ask for 22 and somebody had it, wouldn't they? Nobody ever told you they were out of it. 2015, that demand went from 55 to 22. This year, that demand is 19 million. Demand is about, the supply, this year the supply is 19 million. Demand is still pretty close to 65 million. Let me do some quick math for you. 19 million pounds is 15,000 pallets total in the U.S. being built this year. Total. This state almost has bought 15,000 pallets over in a year before. So that's how tight this has gotten here. Next year, it goes to 9 million. 2018, 19, we're at 4 million the last year. So guys, it's as good as it's going to be. Ever again. Ever again. And that's why you see this number keep going up. And if you've walked into, I know a customer came into us yesterday and said he just left Hinkle. And I'm not throwing names out to say anything, other than just as the way it is. Said they don't have any. Said they're out of it. The last week in April, I got a notice from Chemours, and Chemours is DuPont's chemical company now that oversees all of DuPont's chemical business. It's kind of like the Southern Company oversees Alabama Power, Georgia Power, Mississippi Power, that kind of deal. Okay? they announced effective May the 1st that there was a 75 cent per pound price increase coming on R22. That was effective May 1st. Last night, this has happened since I saw you Tuesday. Last night, I got another message from Chemours announcing another 60 cent per pound. So in the last 30 days, DuPont has gone up $1.35 a pound on R22. And guys, it ain't over. Because basically those 15,000 pallets that have been approved for production this year have pretty much all been sold. Unless they're staggering their production, and some companies are, to have a little bit coming in. But what you're seeing is a combination now of contractors and people who use 22 panicking again about, oh my goodness, I'm never going to be able to find it again, so I better buy all of it I can buy. The largest contractor in Shelby County called me late April and said, Bill, I need a pallet of 22. Can you sell it to me? And I kind of laughed. I said, you know I don't have it unless you give it to me for reclamation. I'm not paying what this stuff costs to buy either. My last time I got a quote on it was the second week in April. It was $425 my cost, a canister, and they said that price is good for 2 days. If you want it, you better get it in a hurry because it'll go up again. So here you are. Here you are. And what are you going to do about it? That's the bad R22 news. And have you bought 410 yet this year?
Yeah.
That's changed a little bit too, hasn't it? Guys, I ain't through either. Anybody told you why that's going up? Most folks don't. So here you go. Hell, I don't know. It's just going up. So something's going on. That's the answer you get. Here's what's going on with it. And all this ties together, guys. I'm not trying to kill time with you or bore you to death. I watch body language up here. I know when you get bored with me, okay? I can tell on it. But you need to know what's going on with the refrigerant because you need to start being, this sounds strong, but you understand what I'm saying. You need to be smarter how you react to things, okay? June 25th of last year, Honeywell, DuPont, Chemours, Arkema, Mexichem, Worthington. Robbie, who was the other one we said the other day? I keep forgetting the seventh one. You remember?
Mexichem.
Huh?
Mexichem. Mexichem.
It's not Mexichem. It starts with an A. Anyway, 7 companies in the refrigerant business filed a petition under the name of the American HFC Coalition. HFC are all your 400 blends refrigerants, the ones that do not have chlorine in them. 410, 404, 407, all of those. Filed a petition with the International Trade Commission and the Department of Commerce asking that a tariff, and you can read that tax penalty dollars, okay? Asking that a tariff be enacted on all Chinese imported HFC blended refrigerants as well as Chinese HFC component refrigerants for those blends, as for a tariff to be placed on those as they were imported into the U.S. because they were coming in below the market price. Now, if you watch the news and keep up what's going on in the world, that shouldn't be a big surprise to you. China does that. China brings a lot of things into different companies, into different countries. They do it at a price below the market share, and the Chinese government subsidizes that company, gives them the money to make up the difference for what they're giving up to sell it here. But it establishes a Chinese marketplace that way. Works real good if you got plenty of money to do it. So on the surface, you hear that petition, and I did when I first read it. I thought that makes sense, good for them. Keep the Chinese stuff out of here to where it keeps bothering everybody's stuff. Then they put this little addendum on the back end of it. They said, we would also like to request that this tariff be enacted retroactively to those Chinese imported HFC blended refrigerants that are currently already in the U.S. Ooh. Because I come from an equipment background. Remember, I'm the American Standard guy. For 23 years, I did nothing but equipment. You go back and count the power company, there for the last 40 years I've been touching this industry. There is not a manufacturer of equipment in the U.S. that does not manufacture some of their product in China. The only thing you can have put in that equipment if it's new is 410. So it's coming out of China with 410 refrigerant in it, Chinese 410, and it's sitting in the U.S. and potentially is suddenly taxable. Buddy, equipment manufacturers and refrigerant people normally go to bed together. They didn't go to separate bedrooms, they went to separate houses when that came out. Because now what are you going to do with all this stuff that's already in the industry sitting there with a Chinese imported refrigerant in it? And you don't know what to do because you don't know what the tariff rate may be. That was filed on June the 25th of last year. The price of those 400 series refrigerants went up about 17% within 30 days. On August the 12th of last year, the ITC issued its first preliminary decision, not the final one, just their first preliminary. They and the Department of Commerce had gone through and established the market price for these refrigerants, kind of established where it was to see how low it was being brought in below that. The ITC voted 7-0, affirming that they agreed with the petition that there ought to be a tariff placed on it. Their proposed tariff rate was anywhere from 100 to 110 to 300%. Now you take, at that time you could buy a jug of 410 for about 70 bucks probably. 300% of 70 is $210 is suddenly what that jug of 410 was going to cost you, had it been the final hearing on it. The Department of Commerce, 14 weeks ago tomorrow, issued their first preliminary hearing. They too voted to confirm it preliminarily. Their thing was that they proposed the tariff rate to be 91 to 210% of it. And the reason you see this window of percentages here is you got more than one company from China importing, and they don't all come in at the same level, same price underneath the market price that was established. So depending upon how far below that market price, the further you are below it, the higher your tariff rate would be, is what it is. So they did that, but the Department of Commerce took it a step further. They made this effective immediately, and it's in place right now, that any future Chinese blended HFC refrigerants or component refrigerants brought into the U.S., when the ship docked at the U.S. harbor, before it could be unloaded, the importer had to pay a percentage of the proposed tax before that refrigerant could be unloaded. That was 14 weeks ago tomorrow. 14 weeks ago, the day after, Friday. My cost on a jug of 410A went up $27 a jug the next day. So guys, that's why you're seeing 410 going up. That's also why you haven't seen it at the final number, because the industry is still sitting there waiting to see what the ITC and the Department of Commerce are scheduled to make their final rulings. The ITC is scheduled to do it sometime in June, and the Department of Commerce is supposed to follow sometime in July. They're already sending out notices to the industry that says don't expect necessarily that the tariff rates that were proposed in our preliminary findings remain the same. It may go up. Y'all ever known the government to go down on anything? I hadn't. So my assumption is that's the best you can probably look at it to be, is somewhere between that 91 that the Department of Commerce was the lower number and the 310 that ITC said is theirs. So that's what's going on with that. Y'all do know that every 400 series refrigerant is also scheduled to be taken out of production. Every one of them. The decision's made. The timetable just hadn't been put in place yet. 410 is already technically an obsolete refrigerant that just hasn't started the production cuts yet. The reason for these is because of the global warming potential on them. Now, Tim's heard me do this 4 times, I guess, now. So, never forget the Montreal Protocol was in 1987, and we didn't start until 2011. So when you go home tonight and you want to lay awake worried about something, this probably isn't it. to worry about 410 going away, but it is. It's going away. What's more scary is nobody knows what the replacement for 410 is going to be. There's nothing out there that is already decided to be done. And y'all may differ on this with me, but with 40 years in the industry, I think I'm at least entitled to an opinion. I think 410 is the worst possible gas they could have chosen to replace 22 to begin with. I mean, why on earth? Especially when you see some of the alternatives we're going to look at that were available then, that operate at lower pressures, lower everything. And we picked one that has the highest pressure on the face of the earth. And you got it in a mechanical system, and when you increase temperature and you increase pressure, what generally happens to that mechanical object? It fails quicker. It's just, that's the way the world works. Did I mention that DuPont was the one who developed 410? Don't ever forget to chase the dollars. Just keep watching the dollars, and you'll eventually get to where you're going to find out why the decision was what it was. Okay? Aren't y'all glad y'all came? Because I mean, it's just, this is what, from a personal standpoint, this is what irritates me, is nobody tells y'all this stuff. You just wander in, and you, it's kind of the mushroom principle there. You kept the dart and fed you know what, pour it on you and hope nobody pays any attention to it, and you continue to buy it, and here you are, and you go back and you're trying to, how many of y'all are apartment, multifamily people? Okay, y'all got budgets for maintenance, and you got R22 in your buildings a lot of times. Your budgets are not built on $500 to $600 jugs of R22. I promise you they're not. If they were built on that, you'd have more money 3 or 4 years ago on it. So now you're fighting a budget that's got an increasing cost that you can do nothing at all about, yet you're still charged with maintaining that stuff. So what in the devil do you do? And every once in a while I'll get on my soapbox in this in case y'all hadn't noticed. But some of y'all in the multifamily bit, the guys of you who are contractors, y'all kind of got to ride that 500 down to 185 down. Some of y'all in the apartment world never did. They got you to 500. You don't have the meeting groups that you go to, that contractors do, that all this kind of gets talked about a little bit with them sometimes. And when I opened this, and we started going out and talking about refrigerant being R22 being $280, $290 a jug, some of you guys looked at me and said, what? I said, yeah, what are you paying for it? The good Lord is my witness. There were a couple of them looked at me and said, we've been paying over $600 for this stuff since 2012. And I said, you never need to remember who you bought it from, because somebody's been putting the screws to you for 4 years out here and ain't bothered to tell. So my wife don't like for me to tell this, but this is one thing I don't care. You probably figured by what I said at the start. I believe in the good Lord, and you need to do what the good Lord wants you to do. And at one of these, at some point in time, you're going to stand at Judgment Day, and He's going to be there, and I'm going to be here, and I'm going to have to give an account for everything I've done in life. Well, I think all the rest of you are going to have to do that, and all the rest of the people in the world got to do that. And I've always kind of figured that the people who were going to be the first in line were probably going to be the murderers, perverts, child molesters, rapists, and those kind of folks. Hell, I about decided at the top of the line maybe some refrigerant people. So, when you see what's going on, that's kind of, I'm sorry. But that's the refrigerant world today. And unfortunately, there's not much you can do about it other than be smart and pay attention when you start to buy something. Because what you'll see today out there, I'll give you a good example. The lowest price I've heard of R22, I guess, in the last 2 months or so, it's been about $400 and some change. The highest I've heard is $600 and something, and that wasn't from a multifamily guy. This was from an HVAC contractor in North Alabama, $600 and something. There. Two things affect that. if there are some multifamily companies that make contract pricing available on 22 that wishes they had never done it, because they've been hung in on some 22 pricing down towards close to $400, and you can't buy it for $400 anymore. That's a losing deal out there, okay? Or you may find, how many of you know where some R12 is sitting today that somebody's just holding on to? Any of you? It's out there. They're out, because I get asked all the time, do I want to buy it? And I'll tell you an interesting thing about R12, if y'all don't let me forget it. But R12 is high as the blue sky. I just can't find anybody who wants any of it, yet the price it is to sell out there. But there's some folks still sitting on a little bit of this older cost inventory out there that just weren't major refrigerant players to begin with, didn't sell a whole lot of it, so it just kind of lasted a little longer there. But I may surprise you when I tell you this. I don't care how low you can find the price of it. You're probably smart if you stay away from it altogether. Because no matter what, if you find somebody selling it to you for $100 a jug, you're going to use that jug up. You're going to probably be putting it in a system that's leaking. It's going to leak out. And then you've got to go back and tell that poor homeowner or poor business that you put it in, you know, I'm sorry, that last time I got this for $100, now it's over $500, and it's going to be about $150 a pound for me to put it in. Boy, have you done that customer a favor out there, because you've just put it off inevitably out there. I usually try to get through with this at about quarter of. It's 19 till right now. Any questions on what we talked about? Any of you ever heard that before? Do you understand why you hadn't? It's unfortunate. Unless y'all think, okay, that's a nice story, Bill, but how do I know you're telling the truth? The one piece of my background that I did not tell you here, I sit on the Alabama State Heating and Air Conditioning Board. I will chair that board next year. So if you hold a state license, how many of you do? State HVAC. Good for y'all. Good for you. Those of you who didn't, raise your hand. I'm going to talk to you in just a second. But good for you on that. But I can't tell y'all something in this meeting they right. That don't fit well. Well, you can look at the governor, the Speaker of the House, and the Supreme Court Justice right now if you don't do things right at that. So I don't want to go where some of them may be going, okay? Even though I might agree with some of the things they're standing for, some of them. But, yes, sir. Oh, I thought you started to ask me something. I hear voices now. So, for those of you who didn't raise your hand, let me encourage you to do something. Y'all remember when, and then we'll take a break and we'll come back and talk about what y'all thought y'all were coming for. I am a huge proponent of this industry is not nearly as good as what it could be. Y'all think about it. If we had walked into this room this morning, and it's bad enough we had to wait. I apologize, I didn't know that. They kind of sprung that on us that they had rented it first, and so normally y'all can come 30 or 45 minutes early to a class. We like doing business here. It's a good room to do it is, and they're nice people. But you can come in and sit down. But this morning that didn't work that way. But y'all remember when Mr. Goodwrench, GM, was advertising Mr. Goodwrench, and they did them as this is the guy who's had all the training, knows better how to fix your car, he's got all these things on it. And then Nate came along in our business that says you're at North American Technical Excellence, that you've got all these things you can wear on your sleeve, that you've passed all these tests, and says you're more proficient. Wouldn't it be nice if doctors did that? You got a brain tumor, and they send you to a neurologist. You go to a neurologist one time in your life probably, and you hope you never go. But when you go, generally things are bad enough at that point, you don't get a lot of second opinions. You ain't got a lot of time when they send you to the neurologist a lot of times. So I hope this is a good one. But wouldn't it be nice if you knew that the guy you were dealing with had met every qualification and taken every test and was certified to do anything he ran into inside your head when he opened you up? That's the guy. I don't care what he cost. I really don't care. I want the guy, I don't want him making a return call, a follow-up service call when he's opened my head up. Guys, our industry to me ought to be the same way. When you've taken the time to get yourself licensed, insured, trained, you continue to get CEU classes, because you're going, those of you who have this, I'm going to pass around a sheet of paper, you're going to get 2 hours this morning for this. But it says you're willing to make yourself better than everybody else in the industry. I don't want to deal with anybody, if somebody's coming to my house to fix something, I don't want to have to wonder if he knows how. You know? I want to know that he knows it when he gets there. And the only way I have to be able to tell that is by what he tells me, his training and those type of things he's got in place. So I'm telling you that to say this. If this is what you want your career to be, make yourself as good at it as you can be. First of all, you're being true to yourself doing that. Second of all, you're being true to your employer. Third of all, you're being true to your customer with it. Because y'all like to get raises. You know, everybody likes that, okay? The only way you can ever get a raise is for the company to have more money. If you got the same money this year that you had last year, if you're losing money this year and you're losing money this year, there ain't no money to give raises. That money ain't not available to get it from anywhere. But if you can add to the revenue base and get your company more profitable and your customers more wanting to do business with you, that's the ticket to how you earn more money, because there's more money available to be shared out there. One of the ways you make that happen is you fix it right the first time, because you're getting paid all the time to do something, okay? So if you're going back for the second or third time on something and it ain't fixed yet, let me tell you how a warranty can cost you something. That young lady back there in the back, they took their car to the Firestone place down here a week ago. New tires, new brakes, do all this. Get it back out and the thing is shaking, can't hardly keep it on the road, take a picture and the steering wheel's vibrating and all that. Guess what Firestone did? They sent them a call, said, would you fill out a survey as to how pleased you were with your service? They filled it out. Long story short to this thing, they are now with a new set of tires, new brake rotors, everything redone at Firestone's expense. Because somebody in the technician lab didn't do it right the first time. I don't know whether that person's still employed there or not. If he worked for me, he's not. But that's kind of the cost of a warranty. So my bottom line on this is, if this is what you want to be the best you can be at it. Take the time to get yourself licensed. And if you want to work for who you work for forever, good for you. You'll be a better employee for them. But if you ever want to do something else, you got an opportunity. It's like my dad told me when he sent me up to St. He said, look, if you don't ever use your college education, that's up to you. But he said, if you choose to go out and figuratively dig a ditch, you can do that with a college education, and it's your choice. But if you don't want to, you got another set of options there. Look, guys, if y'all ever want to do something else, give yourself options and make yourself as good as you can be.